Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, checking your phone, and seeing 150 million naira sitting in your account. Would you spend it? Before you answer, you need to look at Mrs. Ochuko, a retired nurse who spent 35 years working in the dirt, praying for a single open door. One afternoon, the door didn't just open. It was blasted off the frame by a massive credit alert. 150 million naira. Over $100,000 dropped into the lap of a woman who had nothing. She left her old life behind. She bought land in her dream city, built her dream house, bought the dream car, and wore the gold. But the money wasn't a miracle. It was bait. And by the time she realized she had swallowed the hook, the wolves were already at her window. "35 years. That is how long Mrs. Ochuko gave her life to the Delta State Civil Service. Inside the overcrowded hospital wards, she wasn't just a nurse, she was mercy in human form. In a healthcare system suffocating under neglect, her presence changed the atmosphere of a room. Patients trusted her so deeply that some willingly waited hours for her shift before agreeing to treatment. Because when Mrs. Ochuko spoke, people felt safe. She listened. She comforted. She treated suffering people like human beings instead of hospital numbers. To younger nurses, she was more than a senior colleague. She was proof that compassion could survive inside a broken system. But public service in Nigeria comes with a cruel contradiction. The same hands that spend decades saving lives often struggle to survive their own. The moment Mrs. Ochuko stepped outside those hospital gates, respect stopped paying the bills. The white scrubs came off, and reality took over. Rising food prices. Endless responsibilities. 3 children depending on her for school fees, feeding, rent, and survival. Every month felt like a war against arithmetic. And hidden quietly in Ageli, Delta State, sat the dream that kept her going through all 35 years of exhaustion. A small 3-bedroom bungalow. Not luxury. Not wealth. Just peace. But the house remained unfinished. Bare blocks. Exposed rods. Half-painted walls baking under the Delta sun. What was supposed to become her retirement sanctuary slowly turned into a painful reminder of how little decades of honest work could truly provide. Every naira she earned already had an assignment before it reached her account. Sometimes the numbers simply refused to cooperate. Still, Mrs. Ochuko endured. She carried hardship with the silence of a woman trained never to collapse, even when life placed its full weight on her shoulders. Day after day. Year after year. She kept believing that eventually, something would break in her favor. She just never imagined that when the system finally noticed her, it wouldn't come to reward her. It would come to bury her. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The kind of completely unremarkable, hollow day that gives no warning before it fractures your life into a before and an after. Mrs. Ochuko was sitting on the veranda of her rented apartment, washing vegetables in a faded plastic bowl. The Delta sun hung heavily over the compound, pressing heat into the walls, into the air, into the skin. And like every other day, her mind was trapped in its usual exhausting ritual, calculating survival. School fees. Feeding. Cement. Rent. Tomorrow. Then, her phone buzzed. A cheap Android device with a spiderweb crack running across the glass. The kind of phone built for endurance, not miracles. She reached for it casually, wiping damp hands against her wrapper, expecting nothing more than a church broadcast or another network notification reminding her that even airtime had become expensive. She glanced at the screen, and the air completely left her lungs. Credit alert, 150 million Nigerian nairas. 150 million naira. The digit stretched across the cracked screen like a typographic error. A line of zeros so unnatural it looked alien. She blinked once. Then again. Her eyes scanned the message repeatedly, waiting for reality to correct itself. But the numbers did not move. Her fingers began trembling violently around the phone. Because when your entire existence has been a brutal negotiation for crumbs, abundance does not arrive looking like salvation. It arrives looking suspicious. Jesus! Is this really 150 million? She whispered into the empty veranda. Or am I losing my sight? Her chest tightened instantly. Her pulse turned violent beneath her ribs. The sheer weight of the figure felt physically dangerous. Retired nurses did not receive alerts like this. Not in Nigeria. Not from nowhere. Not ever. For the first time in many years, Mrs. Ochuko was afraid of good news. Michael! Her voice cracked through the compound. Michael, come here. Come and check something for me. Footsteps thundered from inside the house as her son rushed out, alarmed by the panic in her voice. Mrs. Ochuko shoved the phone toward him with trembling hands. Michael looked at the screen. And in less than a second, the youth on his face completely disappeared. His eyes widened. He looked at the phone. Then at his mother. Then back at the impossible string of zeros glowing against the cracked glass. Mother! His voice came out thin and breathless. This is not a glitch. He swallowed hard. 150 million naira just entered your account. Silence. The kind of silence that stands perfectly still right before a building collapses. And then, the psychological dam shattered. Mrs. Ochuko screamed. Not from fear. From release. 35 years of exhaustion. Postponed dreams. Humiliation. Unpaid bills. Silent prayers. And swallowed pain erupted out of her body all at once. She threw both hands toward the sky, laughing and crying at the same time, her bare feet stomping against the rough concrete veranda. God has remembered me. She spun in circles, clutching her chest as tears rolled freely down her face. After everything, God has finally remembered me. At that exact moment, Mrs. Ochuko believed her suffering was finally over. She thought heaven had finally answered her prayers. She didn't realize something far darker had answered first. And change arrived with the velocity of a lightning strike. Within days, long-term plans became instant executions. Money was moving through channels she didn't even know existed. The unfinished bungalow in Ageli, that small, pathetic patch of grey bricks that had stood for years as a monument to her exhaustion, was suddenly a ghost of a past she no longer belonged to. Mrs. Ochuko didn't just leave it behind. She discarded it. Why fight to complete a humble retirement shack in a quiet town when the gates of the country had just swung wide open? She packed her life into boxes, turned her back on Delta State, and pointed her compass toward her ultimate dream city, Abuja. On the sprawling, elite outskirts of the nation's capital, she bought her way into a new tier of existence. She purchased a beautiful, compact luxury home. She painted the walls a bright, celebratory cream, a visual eviction notice to the darkness of poverty. To anchor her wealth in the capital, she opened a massive provision complex, stocking it to the ceiling with premium goods. In her mind, this wasn't just a business, it was a fortress of commerce. A steady, bulletproof stream of cash flow designed to ensure her lineage would never touch the economic bottom again. Then came the sweet liberation from the streets. Mrs. Ochuko bought a clean, brand new Honda Civic. For 35 years, she had stood under the scorching sun, begging crowded buses for a space to breathe. Now, she sat wrapped in air-conditioned silence, inhaling the pristine, intoxicating scent of factory new leather every time she glided through the smooth streets of Abuja. She poured wealth into her children, financing their ambitions, completely erasing their struggles in a single stroke. And slowly, her identity began to mutate. She was no longer just Mama Ochuko the nurse. She joined the inner circles of Abuja's most influential women, a high society network built on raw influence, status, and lavish celebration. she permanently traded her faded nursing scrubs for expensive, heavy, rustling lace that announced her arrival in a room before she even parted her lips. At first, she was quiet, simply observing how the capital's wealthy elite moved. But money has a predatory way of opening doors. In no time, she didn't just fit into the circle, she was elected its vice chair lady. Parties became her new routine. Glamorous gatherings, high-stakes meetings. Her face became famous. Her presence, deeply respected. Mrs. Ochuko was no longer a survivor. She was a matriarch. She spent her days draped in gold, walking through an Abuja mansion painted in celebratory cream, completely intoxicated by the fragrance of her own success. She believed that by escaping to the capital, she had successfully hidden her miracle from the world. She had no idea that moving to Abuja didn't save her from the wolves. It just put her in a more expensive cage. Mrs. Ochuko isn't the first person to learn that unexpected blessings in a broken system are almost always a trap. On this channel, we document the precise moment the universe decides to collect its debts. Before the wolves finish with Mrs. Ochuko, make sure you are subscribed, because our archives hold stories that will make your blood run cold. The ghost credit: if you think a 150 million naira alert is dangerous, look at what happened when a bank made a $120,000 mistake. He thought he was rich, until they came for his life. The nylon bag, the terrifying downfall of an untouchable police officer who ruled the streets with absolute terror until his entire empire was brought down by a single, ordinary nylon bag. The architect's grave, the chilling downfall of a brilliant builder who unknowingly constructed his own death trap. Fake fasting, the shocking story of how greed manipulates the divine. The 21-day fast that went horribly, terribly wrong. Links to all of these stories are waiting for you in the description and the pinned comment. Now, back to Abuja, where time is running out for Mrs. Ochuko. For 5 months, life was good. Very good. Almost dangerously good. It was a life lived in high definition. Too perfect to be real. Then one day, without warning, the illusion was violently shattered. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Mrs. Ochuko was driving back from a high society meeting on the outskirts of Abuja. The windows were up. The air conditioner was humming softly, wrapping the interior of her Honda Civic in a capsule of artificial calm. For once in her life, the world outside felt distant. Irrelevant. The speakers played "Enjoyed" by techno. She hummed along softly under her breath, chanting the words like a quiet, personal prayer. Her head swayed gently to the rhythm. Fingers tapping lightly on the steering wheel. After 35 years of agony, she was convinced she had finally earned her peace. As she slowed down to navigate a jagged fracture in the road near her street, the trap snapped shut. A dark SUV swerved violently out of the shadows and screeched to a halt, blocking her universe. Before her foot could even find the reverse gear, the doors flew open. 2 men stepped out. Armed to the teeth. No uniforms. No badges. Just dark masks and death machinery. One moved first. A heavy rifle butt smashed directly into her window. The sound was sharp, final. Glass exploded into her lap like 1,000 shimmering diamonds. Get out! Get out now if you want to live. A freezing cylinder of steel pressed hard against her temple. Her hands flew into the air, shaking uncontrollably. Her breath broke apart inside her chest. She was dragged out of the luxury cabin and thrown ruthlessly onto the hard, dusty Abuja asphalt. Her expensive lace tore instantly against the rough gravel. It wasn't just fabric ripping, it was her fragile new status being stripped away in real time. The same attire that once announced her arrival in rooms of power was now being dragged through the dirt, like it had never mattered. Breathless and paralyzed, she watched the red taillights of her dream dissolve into the darkness, leaving her alone in the cold. Traumatized and broken, she dragged her battered body back inside her home. The walls she once painted with pride now felt unfamiliar. Like they were watching her. Her heart was still hammering against her ribs like a dying bird when the silence was pierced by her ringtone. She answered with trembling, bloody fingers. "Hello, madam," the voice said. "Calm. Official. Institutional. This is Mr. Stephen from the Bureau of State Pensions." Her heart skipped. There has been an administrative error. A long, agonizing pause. The 150 million naira credited to your account 5 months ago was processed incorrectly. Silence. "The forensic audit is complete," the cold voice continued, cutting through her like a blade. "You were only entitled to 300,000 naira. The remaining amount must be refunded immediately." The world didn't spin. It dropped. Her entire biology turned to ice. Refund? With what? The luxury house was bought. The money was distributed. The Honda Civic was currently being stripped in a shadow workshop by masked gunmen who had vanished into the night with the only proof of her blessing. The house suddenly felt smaller. Heavier. Every single brushstroke of that celebratory cream paint on her wall suddenly transformed from a visual eviction notice to poverty into a debt sentence she could never pay. The fortune wasn't a miracle from heaven. It was a high-interest loan from a ghost. And the ghost had come to collect. The mathematical weight of a 150 million naira deficit hit her fragile system all at once. Her blood pressure spiked into the red zone. Her heart, worn thin by 35 years of labor and 5 months of intoxication, simply quit. The matriarch collapsed onto the expensive floor of a luxury house she no longer owned. They rushed her via ambulance to the hospital, the exact same institution where she had spent over 3 decades saving lives. As the sharp, sterile scent of antiseptic filled her lungs and the rhythmic, clinical beep of the heart monitor echoed in the room, a bitter, tragic irony settled over the bed. She was now the patient in the very ward she used to command. But this time, no one came to save her. Mrs. Ochuko took her last breath. And after 35 years of surviving for everyone else, she finally stepped away. One moment can rewrite your entire destiny. Sometimes, what looks like an answer to your prayers is simply a test you were never engineered to pass. In a system broken by chaos, always verify before you validate. Because not every miracle belongs to you. And some gifts will cost you your life. What would you have done the exact second that money hit your account? Would you have spent it? Or disappeared before anyone came looking for it? Tell me in the comments. Be sure to check the description or pinned comment below for links to our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe. And stay tuned every Saturday for more stories.